Welcome back to Change Ed.
Change Ed.
I am your number one rated host in all of podcast land, Andrew Kuhn, education consultant from Montgomery County Intermediate Unit. And here with me is
Patrice Semichek, also out of the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit.
And also a host of the show.
Oh, I'm a host now? I've been elevated?
Go. Yes. You've been elevated.
No one heard the co.
I feel like the co was implied. It didn't have to be heard. It was implied. Anyway, we are here for part 2 of our
French
podcast with Dr. Brian Housand. And I think people are going to be excited about this. This is a little bit of a teaser for what they're going to hear. They're going to hear about the hierarchy of curiosity.
The non-existent, you want it to happen hierarchy of curiosity.
Yeah, but I'm putting it out there now so people
it's
know.
Out in the universe?
It's been copyrighted and trademarked.
Yeah.
It's a thing because it happened here. It happened here first. People know if it happens here, it really happened.
Yep.
I think we should dive right back in.
Sounds good.
You know, I'm curious. I'm almost positive it's not a thing, but my curiosity about curiosity is I'm wondering if there's like a hierarchy of curiosity itself. Like a tier 1 would be something you could easily Google and you could easily find, right? Like I'm interested in that. Oh, I found the answer and I kind of move away. Like if there's something, then like kind of the next level is
to like attach it to DOK? Like depth of knowledge type?
Maybe that's a good example.
Yeah, no, man, I think that's, pretty intriguing. I think that there's probably potentially, some different factors that play a role into that of, am I feeling psychologically safe in this particular environment as a part of that? Is it something that is of a prior interest to me? Is it something that I am valuing? I think is probably potentially another piece of like, gosh, I need this piece of information in order to solve some other problem that I'm having. So I'm very curious about that particular piece. Or, I really am interested in similar things. Now I want to know more about that.
Yeah.
I think that there's also kind of this like internal curiosity and that there's an external curiosity. Some people might have this intellectual curiosity of like, I just want to pour all of the information into my head because I've got these questions. And then others might feel much more comfortable kind of going out into the world to ask people about that. So I think it might be kind of like an introvert extrovert type of factor that might play into that as well.
Or a level of
but I really like the leveling of that.
I do too.
It's copyrighted. Just so if it comes up in your research.
Can both of our names be on there? Whatever you do, whatever you're doing.
Change Ed.
What is at all that?
Yeah, that'll be S at all. I can see it in my head. I think it's a really interesting idea to attach it to DOK and also like the hierarchy of needs. Like I feel like they're all interconnected, and it would be interesting to see what that crosswalk or that graphic was.
I guess the other thing I can see is how a lot of what you were saying, Brian, led me to this is that the other piece would be, even if it is something you go out and you go for your quick, easy search on the internet to find this. I think factors like your own body of knowledge and your experience are going to impact, am I satisfied with the answer that I've just received? Does that work? Can I work through that and it works? Or maybe even in that initial, what could have been a tier 1 curiosity, I bumped it up to tier 2 because now I'm willing to take it to the next step and kind of start to dig in further on my own. And again, just kind of even from life experiences, you see things in the science world, we're like, wow, that's a fascinating phenomenon. What is this? And sometimes it's easy to find the solution because somebody else has really dived in. And other times you're like, well, this is my turn to actually be the one to dive in. We're going to try to go the distance with this and figure it out. So what I was hearing and I appreciate is I think there are so many factors which are always true in all aspects of education, since we're all our own unique individuals coming into this, that there are so many different things that impact that learning opportunity for each person in that safe space. And we can all have a different experience while seeing the same thing unfold.
So while you're saying that, makes me wonder, like in terms of like what I can do in the classroom, like I've learned a lot about Genius Hour and project-based learning and those kinds of things. And I'm thinking that is a little bit more open-ended and therefore it allows for more curiosity to kind of take place. Project-based learning is probably more directed. It's like in my head, it's like a scaffold of gradual release, really. Like you're going to do a problem, then you can get to a project-based thing, and then you get to get to Genius Hour where like you can just dive in and explore whatever you want to explore. Have you seen in all the work that you're doing or in the connections that you're making any of those strategies or anything else as being more impactful? Or have you found that like they're kind of all about the same? And as long as you're even starting to kick off with something, you're going to make a little bit of a difference.
I think that there's kind of a lot of it depends, from kind of my perspective, again, coming from the University of Connecticut, studying at the Renzulli Center with Joe Renzulli and Sally Reese, then I'm definitely like a school-wide enrichment model, enrichment triad through and through. So for me, then looking at those type threes, according to Renzulli and Reese, would really be sort of the ultimate, that what you're looking for is those individuals or small groups to come together to identify this real world problem and to produce something that is authentic product or performance that's going to solve or work towards that solution to that problem.
Yeah.
That they're contributing to that field of knowledge in exactly the same way that a practicing professional would within whatever their discipline or field of study is. I think that something like project-based learning or problem-based learning is kind of maybe a step towards that. It is a little bit more scaffolded, a little bit more teacher-directed than student-directed. Genius Hour, I think, just opens up that opportunity to so many more students and creates that opportunity of time and space in order to develop or investigate those areas of interest. When I think about all those things, and I think about that from kind of a classroom teacher perspective, and I sort of hear all of those classroom teacher voices in my head of like, well, we don't have time for this.
Yeah.
All of those things take time, a lot of time, and it's worthy of that investment. When I think about what a classroom teacher can do to spark that curiosity is to think about the lessons and the content that they're teaching. And instead of starting with, we're just going to state the objective right up front.
Tell them everything up front. Yeah.
We're gonna just cut to the
Here's
we're gonna cut to the final.
So until we get there,
here's the last page. And they lived happily ever after. No, and like you have all of the spoilers right there in that.
Yeah.
Like let's again build that moment of just not knowing. Like where's your entry point? How can you really heighten that anticipation in a really positive way so that they're like, oh gosh, I don't know. I'm intrigued by this.
Yeah.
I really want to know more. And please, let's dig into this. That's where the magic is.
One of my friends she used to work here, Brooke, found this, and I don't know where she found it, and I'll have to figure it out. It's called Firestarters. And so we've done this to like start off our PD sometimes, where they get a paper bag. And I've done this in classrooms with kids, and it's gone over really well. They get a paper bag with 5 items in it, and it's like the most 5 random things. It's like Play-Doh, a straw, pipe cleaners, and paper clips, and like pom-poms, right? Like none of them.
Those don't seem random at all. That just sounds like a really
lot of fun, right? So you give them like this bag, and you're like, okay, you have 5 minutes. Here's a question. You have 5 minutes. I want you to create a representation of what you think the answer to this is. And they have 5 minutes, and that's it. All they can use is those materials. And I have seen some of the coolest stuff come out of adults and kids. And I think that's like a super simple way of a teacher introducing a lesson. Like, here's just random stuff I have in my classroom. Now you've got Post-it notes and markers. Go do whatever. So I think there's like you were saying, small little things that can flip it. So you're not just spoon feeding them up front. Like, let's talk about what you know. And then I've done it where they come back to what they created in their Firestarter and they revise what they've made based off of their new learning, or they get another bag with the same stuff and create something new. Like, it's a really interesting opportunity for teachers to just flip the script a little bit.
Yeah. I think that there's, some pretty classic ways that we can go about doing that, kind of points to ponder, provocative questions, those types of things. Let's show you some sort of, intriguing image or artifact, or, just a very curious YouTube clip. I mean, those are, I think, all relatively easy things that we can do just to, start off in a slightly different way. I was just reminded of an activity that one of my good friends, and I think just an all around great teacher, Justin Mitchell, who's from Kentucky. He teaches, he's a middle school social studies teacher. And at the beginning of every school year, he brings out these artifact jars. And so in each of these kind of mason jars, there's sort of the sands of time, but there's also these icons and like small objects then that represent each of the units of study that the students will be exploring over the course of this academic year.
Oh, cool.
And so they're kind of looking through, and they can't open up the jars, but they can just kind of move them around and, shift the sands in them so that you're seeing these different objects or representations of what might be happening.
I love that.
And they really use that as kind of this prediction tool to think about, well, where is this going?
Mm-hmm.
And as they come up to that unit of study through the year, then like, let's bring that jar down, take a closer look at it and what this might now represent.
I love that so much. That's very cool.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier as you were describing it, and you were describing kind of like how a story unfolds and that we don't just give you the end at the beginning. It needs to build. And so I'm very much hearing a storyline through here. But what it made me think of was that the goal of a movie trailer isn't to tell you the entire story. It's to get you curious and intrigued and want to go see the movie and want to learn the storyline and see what's going to happen, right? Like you got me hooked. So it's getting you hooked. Curiosity is really a hook, but a genuine hook that you want to lean in more. You want to figure this out, and it pushes you to go further. So
yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, I think that the movie trailer piece is, just the perfect representation of what you want to do as the start of a new unit, sort of a new lesson. You want it to be engaging so that your students are they're wanting to know more. Yeah. They're like, oh gosh, when is this going to end? It's like, oh no, now we need to see the rest of the movie. We need to really dig deep into this.
I can't tell you how good it felt for you to say that I came up with the perfect representation.
I was going to say something snarky, but I kept it in. It hurt. Did you see the pain on my face? It hurt.
Oh.
It's a good thing we haven't gone visual with our podcast because people would have,
they would have seen it. It would have hurt. Anyway.
Brian, as you know from recording with us, not once, but twice, we have a time-honored tradition here. Long-standing
tradition.
At Change Ed, where we like to give our VIP guests the second to last final word. And you, sir, are a VIP guest, so we'd like to send that to you now. Do you have a second to last final word?
It seems to be a tremendous honor and with a lot of responsibility.
Don't listen to any other of our podcasts then.
Yeah, no, I am happy to be a VIP. As I'm thinking about this second to the last final words of wisdom, I am reminded of this concept of the flaneur. This comes from sort of 19th century France, particularly in Paris. And the flaneur were these well-to-do individuals, let's just say well-to-do men, who at that point in time really had the opportunity to be connoisseurs of the street. They would sort of walk around the growing cityscape as these urban wanderers, being highly observant and just simply taking in everything that they saw as they sought out experiences that were really going to fuel their creative minds. And I think that what we perhaps should be really striving towards is to provide that flaneur experience to everyone that we possibly can. And we're encouraging ourselves, modeling that for our students, presenting them with opportunities to allow them to be these highly observant wanderers, that they're gathering in all of this information and really looking for ways that they can use that as the fuel that's going to spark new ideas and new innovation.
I want that job.
Yeah. It's actually really encouraging to know that there was this group that was even leaning into curiosity so long ago that it was valued, even if it's not valued the way that you had mentioned before, with that curiosity and effort can rival IQ. Even if we're still getting to that point, that there still was that strong value back then.
That's awesome. All right, Andrew, bring it home.
Oh, the final word. Wow. Guys, I'm so unprepared. This never happens. Well, thank you for this honor. Thank you for coming on, Brian. We really appreciate you giving us the time. And
we're very fortunate you came on.
Sharing your knowledge, your education, your experience with us. It means a lot. And we look forward to furthering the conversation of curiosity, not only in the entire nation, because honestly, Change Ed is everywhere, but just continuing it in education itself. So again, thank you. Thank you to all the listeners for tuning in and listening. Things that really stuck out to me very strongly were what we just shared, that curiosity and effort can rival IQ. That really hit home with me. I loved how you shared that about having a hungry mind. That really was like, oh, that was a good visual for me. And I loved how you shared that curiosity is the spark of everything. It really just, we've had a podcast where we talked about igniting the spark. When the spark hits, what do we do to actually add to it so it becomes a flame versus patting it out and putting it out? And that really resonated with me. Also, I loved my analogy about the movie trailers. It was so strong. It really stuck with me. And then, the last thing I want to say is just go on the record.
This is the longest last word ever.
Yeah, it's less words.
It's like 18 paragraphs.
The Hierarchy of Curiosity
Wow,
is copyrighted by Andrew Kuhn, education consultant.
Yeah, that's how you're ending it.
At all.
At all. Thank you, Brian. Will maybe be included in a footnote. Maybe.
Thank you so much. We look forward to having you on the show again, Brian.